Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Black Table Talk. We have a special edition today. We have Mr. Stanley Ming and his five-star general here, and we're going to be having a very lively discussion. But just a reminder, this is Black Table Talk. Black, because the table that we started on was literally painted black. Table, because it was a table we were on, and talk, because we were talking. And the creative team decided to call it Black Table Talk, right? So we're going to be discussing the Guyana 2030 plan, a couple of interesting projects that Mr. Ming is working on. And yeah, but before we begin, we have a special presentation to do with Mr. Ming, and I'll ask Jubilanti to assist me. Now, we are presenting him with a pin, a special pin for the One Guyana, and we created one for you and one for Abby for arranging this program. And you could choose which one you want, and she's going to pin it on you, right? So this is based.
Normally I would let Abby choose first, but seeing that she's not here as yet, I will go with that one.
All right, perfect. No,
she can always exchange after if you don't mind.
no problem.
Whichever she chooses.
So the unique thing about this is a couple weeks, well, Mr. Ming will give you a little background on this, but he posted something on Facebook saying that he had designed a special logo to bring the people of Guyana together and all of that. So yeah, we decided to not only take the initiative to get a logo, but to work on it to show the commitment of young people to developing our nation together, right? So yeah, that's about it. Mr. Ming, would you like to say anything about your One Guyana concept?
Well, Martin, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. A nice semi-sunshine Saturday morning with you folks. Whether you guys like it or not, as I look around me this morning, you are the future of Guyana, whether you like it or not. And I maintain, and my colleague Eric here maintains, that until such time that as people, whether we are of ancestry, African, Indian, Portuguese, Chinese, our native Amerindian people, unless we wake up in the morning in the future and feel that we have a stake in the pie called Guyana, this country will go nowhere. Very simple. There is no rocket science in there. Until such time that you feel, irrespective of what part of Guyana you come from, who your parents were, that when I go out there today on the road and I go to the office or wherever, and I do my job, at the end of the day, I will be able to put food on the table, educate my children, live in secure environments. We ain't gonna get anywhere in a hurry. Simple.
All right, perfect. So let's start off the discussion. I'll hand over straight to Nairon. Yeah, straight over to Nairon. So over the last couple of days, we've been doing a lot of really intensive work on the background of Mr. Ming and the kind of projects he's been dealing with. And we have probably 100 and something questions to ask you. But this is just the first segment of the program. So whole day is Ming Day today, right?
Whole day.
So after you, Nairon. What were you thinking?
Great. So, look, firstly, when it comes to the whole Guyana 2030 plan, right, there's lots of different elements towards it. But one thing we know for sure is we don't lack plans. We have enough plan at this point in time, right? I think I remember hearing you plans from way back in 1970. And now I think we're at the stage where is the execution time now. And I don't know, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well as Mr. Eric as well. Do you think that Guyana has an inferiority complex kind of issue? Now that we have the discovery of oil, we're now heading to the world stage. Do you think we're mentally prepared to such a level?
Rick, you want to go first?
Well, thank you and good morning, everyone. I think in the Guyana 2030 presentation, Mr. Ming said that he has a document that shows the plans of plans.
Yeah.
And in that document, there are probably 60 or 70 different plans we've had for quite a while. Also, you know that Guyana is one of the most endowed nations in the world. We have the #1 product in the world, oil. We have the #2 product in the world, gold. The #3 product in the world, which is water. We're the second most empowered nation per capita for fresh water. We do nothing about it. And of course, we have forests with climate change and all of that. So we have all these assets, all these endowments, we have all these plans, and it's not that we feel to have an inferiority complex. Is that the people who should be giving us a strategic vision haven't. The Guyana 21 plan was July 1996. We presented
1996, yeah.
Yeah. In Guyana 2030, that evolved later and is still evolving as we see going on. We have to have political will, first of all. We have to have a Guyana one view of the world. This is as we are all one. As Mr. Ming said, if every Guyanese doesn't wake up in the morning and feel they have an equal share, that there's equity here for them, we wouldn't be united, and unless we are united, we can't execute plans. In the presentation, Mr. Ming also indicated that we should have a population of 1.5 million people.
No, the population today, if you go for the demographics that go back from the 1950s and 60s, should be 3 million.
3 million. We have a huge diaspora. They have
More than double what we have in Guyana.
Skills, capabilities, networks, capital, technology, all the things we need here for local content. So it is for us to have the will to want to unify Guyana and want to execute the plans. And Mr. Ming, as you said, he's integrated a lot of plans into a strategic vision which makes sense. So,
well, what I want to say with regards to what Eric just said is that Guyana, at this point in time, can make tremendous leaps and bounds into the future. What we did in 1996 was, as Eric says, there were studies that were done for Guyana since independence about everything. And the unfortunate thing is that most of those studies were either destroyed, misplaced, either conveniently or accidentally on purpose, as we say. And what we did was looked at them. It is not a Stanley Ming plan by any means. It is a conceptual plan based on the studies that were done for the country at the request of the government of the day. And what we did was amalgamated all of those studies into a plan that could move the country forward. So I tell people it's not a Stanley Ming plan. It's the plans that were done for the government and people of Guyana.
Is your plan?
Now, to give you an example, a classic example, you hear all the noise right now, oh, they're building this bypass road from Mandela Avenue through South Rumbell to link to Eccles and then to Diamond. Well, I have the study upstairs. It was done in 1970. The same thing. But the problem is that it was done when the PNC was in office. So for many years, various political movements feel that if we do this plan that was done in 1970 under the PNC, then they can get the credit. But I have a different approach to that. I don't care who did the plan. Who expedited is the ones I will give the credit to. Simple. And one of the things that we have to understand, right, is that politicians, and I say this openly, politicians base what they do on what they think will give them the best chance 5 years after they get into office to get back in again. And invariably, it is not based on a logical sequence. Countries like India and Malaysia and Singapore, many years ago, long before the turn of the century, when we talked about Guyana 21, we talked about what we should be doing as we went into the 21st century, as a collective. Now, if you are the current breeder politician, right, and you decide, well, you know, Region 6 is my, where I got my support, I can build a road from 58 village to 62 village, right, because I can fool the people up there that are looking after their interests, right, and then next 5 years I get in. And I say, I can build another road from West Coast, Bobis. Yours coming so, and I can build my own coming so. But you know the problem is, they never meet. So we can't communicate or come along a roadway that will join. So you can be going southwest, and I be going northeast, right? And it doesn't tie in. What you need to do, as of now, is to take all these studies, see what plans can be used to link the country's 10 regions in a way that if you're in power now and you get in power in the next 5 years, when you do what you want to do and you do what you want to do in your region that you think you got support, eventually 20 years down the road, it comes together. So you have a national plan. But that's not what we've done.
Well,
right?
Something that really stood out about you when it came to Black Table Talk is that we really admire a unique perspective, the technocratic perspective, someone who looks at, who takes a pragmatic approach to development, and that really stood out to us. But just so that you know, we understood that in last night in our discussion, something that popped out, because we've reviewed a lot of the work that you've done, is that you said it very clearly. You don't care to be politically correct. Once you're correct, that's what makes you happy, right?
Absolutely.
So that's something that really we just wanted to think. And by the way, this is sponsored by Massiah Capital, so definitely check out from construction to animation. Just check us out there and buy us a cup of coffee, right? So moving on swiftly.
Martin, let me just add before you go.
No problem.
When Eric and I and several others, Supriya Singh and Jerome Khan, Peter Ramsarup, when we came together many years ago, I was approached by those folks. They were all my contemporaries in business and they were professionals. And they said, let us form a political party and contest elections. And they came to me and asked me to be the leader of the pack, right? And I said to all of them then, I said, you know something, if you think we're going to form a party and go against the PNC and the PPP and win, you're smoking something and it's not a cigarette, right? For the simple reason that we know the politics of Guyana. Nobody can fool me about what goes on in Guyana between the two major ethnic groups. And the only way you're going to change the political culture of this country is that you got to work from within those parties. You can't challenge them because at the end of the day, as a friend of mine said, when they go in the ballot box, Skipper, they see two colors, right? They see the palm tree, right? And they see the cup, right? And I always remember a joke which might not be very welcome by everybody, but I remember the PNC using a slogan many years ago. I thought it was funny. It says, vote for whoever you want, but don't vote for cup. Right?
That's interesting. Right now, on this side of the table, everybody nervous. Nervous. They don't know what to say. How to react and all that.
No, but what I want to say to you, whether it's the PPP in government or the PNC, my position and the position of my colleagues is if at this point Mr. Irfan Ali comes up with a good plan, which I think he has, in this moving people away from the coast, developing Silica City, which is Temeri in Highland, and the east bank of the Essequibo River, perfect. I don't care if it's PPP or whoever. It's an excellent idea. He talks about a 4-lane highway linking where they put the new bridge going towards Parika and beyond to move the country south. Excellent idea. So I support that. But if anybody wants to call me PPP, so be it, right? Right? If Granger had done it, I would have given him the credit and support because it's logical, it's in the interest of the country. So don't tell me that because a member of the leader of the PPP or the presidential candidate of the PPP comes up with something and because he is not PNC that I wouldn't support it. No way. I will support him as best I can because you know what? It's in the interest of Guyana, not him, right? So, and that is what we got to get over. This nonsense about you're either for or against. That's nonsense.
So looking at, this is all within the context of designing a plan for the development of Guyana in the future, right? And clearly what we're identifying here is there's a need for unity when it comes to one vision. There's a need for understanding when it comes to the people of Guyana. And I think those are the biggest takeaways so far for us to really focus our discussion along the lines. Now, in our discussion as we were preparing for this interview, well, Black Table Talk. Feel free, everybody could interact.
Yeah.
We have any questions online? If you have any questions, just post your questions and we'll answer it, because it's not every day you have an opportunity to interact with persons that understand Guyana at a really unique level. But I want like Aubrey to highlight the point he made about the natural resource water, and I think it's one of the resources that are currently underdeveloped and underexploited. So Aubrey, you want to handle this one?
Sure. Mr. Phillips said something that was of great interest to me, as well as everybody else on the team, that coming together as South America, we have the second largest amount of freshwater resource in the world, and we haven't done anything about it. And one of my questions that I had prepared is if or why Guyana hasn't prepared a plan or a strategy to produce water on a large scale level, and not only provide to the persons locally, but to actually export and make an income from it. I know that there's the Conservancy and so on, and myself and Nyron, we would have seen some water plants in Brazil about 2 years ago. And these people converting fresh water resource from right within their country, and they are producing to the entire Boa Vista. And that was like a very amazing plan. And I wondered to myself, why haven't we come close to something like that? There's the Essequibo River that you spoke about that runs right into the Atlantic Ocean, and we don't utilize. We basically do not utilize our freshwater resources like the rest.
All right, let me jump on that one for you. A major problem we have in Guyana is a mindset problem of the masses of people, right? Now, let me tell you why I say that. And I blame all of us, right? Not so much you because you're young, but my generation, I blame us because, let me tell you why. If I go tomorrow to the United States, I fly into New York or Miami, and I want to build houses or I want to set up a business, do I ask for a meeting with the president or the minister? No. You know what I do? First of all, I go rent a house. I don't have to get a special person to go and find out if I can buy or rent. Then the next day I go to the bank and I say, look, I got a business plan. I want to set up a housing development, or I want to set up a hardware store, and I need $1 million, right? And then I go to the landlord who got the property, and it says, I want to rent a space, right? But you know what we do? I got to see the president, boy. I got to go see the minister, right? What nonsense is that, right? The system has to change fundamentally. Right? And what has happened is that we allow ourselves for the last 50-odd years to succumb to a system that has no logic. Right? And then we say, oh, the government ain't got a vision. Skipper, they can hardly help themselves. and you want them to help you? Right?
Let me add to that, Stan, because I know you'll talk about Bartica and the pipe. Amazon Resources, a Dutch firm out of Holland, got a concession in Suriname next door and sent 2 million liters of water to Barbados. We got a lot more water. We could have been shipping water out in tanks like oil. But it comes back to the lack of strategic vision. We had what? National Development Plan, 200 plus people got involved in it, we chuck it away. We run the LCDS, so we got the Norwegian money, we chuck it away. We went to green economy, we chuck it away. Now we have oil. And every time we do that, we're doing a disadvantage to our young people because there's no jobs being created, because there's no overall strategy.
Yeah.
And that's why you have a large youth unemployment. If each government had committed to the national development strategy, regardless of who's in power, every year you know that there is something that's going to happen. You can see 20 years, you can plan your career, you can plan what degree you want to get. But coming back to water again, we do nothing with it. Little Suriname thinking more ahead of us.
Yeah, I blame us as Guyanese. And many other parts of the world. I mean, for instance, right? Let's stop to think. You have the PVP in government right now. You got a president, a vice president, or 60 ministers, right?
Quite a few.
And the staff. And then you got 65 parliamentarians, all right? Now, you tell me, so you got, let me say, the president, cabinet, everything, 200 people. And you are saying that this 200 people must design and plan my future. What are the other 748,900 and whatever doing? We sitting down with our hands stretched out, right? What are we waiting on, right? We are doing a disservice to ourselves, bottom line. The thinking has to change, right? All of you living in some home, whether it's your own, you're renting, or your parents, who give your parents the money to build the house and to create a homestead? Which politician? Tell me, so I can go to him tomorrow if I want. Right? You all went to school, got an education, went to university. Which politician gave you the money? Tell me, I want to go tomorrow.
Politician named hard work.
All right, so we are being unfair to them and ourselves at the same time. And we got to change that, right?
A major perspective that we kind of looked at a few weeks ago was who should be the driver for development, you know, whether it should be like public sector or private sector. And based on our conversation and one of the other Black Table Talk episodes, we believe that the driver should always be the people, the private sector, the persons with the ideas, the innovators. And the job of the public sector is to facilitate as much growth and development as possible. But the driver themselves should be the private sector, the people on the ground, the people just like us right down here who might not necessarily be a part of the public sector. So what would be your perspective?
Well, let us get to the bolts and nuts of this, right? Simple again, it's not rocket science. You got 750,000 people in Guyana. Let me say average mother, father, and 3 children, 5, right? So you got 150,000 households, okay? Now, what we're saying indirectly within the government is that you need the 200 people who in parliament and thing, right? If we divide it by 5, it's 40 families to create everything that the other 150 families need. Nonsense, right? Your parents, from day one, work hard, save money, get a mortgage, build a house, and that's what you're benefiting from. So why are you and us waiting for the 40 families that are in government to take care of us?
Let me take a stab at that. The public sector and private sector. Within the private sector, there are 2 elements. Don't let's forget that. There's the private sector, as we know, private sector commission, GCCI, etc. But then there's the corporate sector, where people come together like our ancestors did, right? Bought villages. So it's like all of you coming together in a group, forming a corp, forming a business, right? It's not the private sector because it's not a government, and executed. And that's what we got to start thinking about too. A lot of entrepreneurs want to go it on their own, and that's fine. But you can only bring sustainable wealth if you work as a team, as a group.
And there's a role, to add to what Eric says, there's a role for government, there's a role for private sector, and there's a role for the ordinary citizens. All right? Because not all of us are business people. And the sooner we recognize that each of us got a critical role, the government of the day has to maintain law and order. You and I can't go down the road with a bunch of semi-military and say we keep law and order. That's the role of the government, okay, of the day. The private sector is to envision what we can do in business and to create it. Government should never get into business, right? If you want to waste money and spend 4 times as much, try government to do business. That's the reality, right? So government has to take the taxes that we all pay and all the families that are lesser privileged, make sure that they get a piece of the spoils so they can educate their children. Those who are physically challenged, they got to take care of them, the elderly that are in the almshouse, whatever. That's the role of government, right? The role of people like myself and Eric is to find businesses that we have been trained to do and put them into place, get the requisite skilled people to run them and to make them function. But you know what we got right now? A political party wins the election. Okay? Then you do abna, right? Ladies' needs, and you pick those minister for works. But you know what? The only thing that you know, right, is the planting. But they put you in charge of works. And I do another abna, and I end it with this young lady. And they say, here, I can put you minister of finance. But she only know law. But you know what happened? Because of self-aggrandizement or whatever you want to call it, she goes into office the next day and she's an expert now in finance. You're an expert in work, right?
You know, Mr. Ming, allow me to...
Thank you, Lamar, for joining in.
You know, since you're speaking on that I want to also address an earlier point Mr. Eric made concerning political will. And I want to pose a question to both of you as it pertains to constitutional reform. Where does that rank on your list of priorities if Guyana should prioritize that? Because if we look at our current structure, we have an opposition seat entrenched, we have a government entrenched. And so with that method, we will know that we'll always have an opposition and a government. And you know, I think, in my opinion, they've gotten comfortable over the years because they know that there will be an opposition and a government. And so there's nowhere in our Constitution that necessarily requires technocrats or requires someone with technical knowledge to fill a particular ministerial role. So where does Constitution...
Let me stick a pin right now, right? I know that one very well. Okay? Priority number one, national unity.
Yeah.
Priority number two, constitutional reform. Right? Now let me tell you what you don't know. I can send it to all of you at the end of this session. Many years ago, there was a Constitutional Reform Commission, right? Headed by Mr. Ralph Ramkaran. Still there, Cameron Shepherd. Dr. Rupert Rup-Narain, Clive Thomas, you name it. Alden Paris. Top brains of the country that had legal and managerial, visionary capabilities. Spent a couple of years and not only looked at what we had, but came up with a comprehensive document. I got it, right? Of what it was up to then or what it should be. You know it there?
No, sir.
In the library in the Parliament buildings. It has everything in it. We don't need to do another exercise. But the beauty about politicians, which I admire to some extent, is the ability to create illusions. Right? They make Mandrake and Houdini look like shippiness. Right? And that is what you have. Right? The easiest way for me to get rid of y'all, or anybody that wants to change, I say, here, y'all do a white paper. Right? Spend the next 2 years and do a white paper. By the time you're done the white paper, I turn gray. Right? And I can't understand or decipher what it is. The will to change has to be embraced by everybody. People, politicians, and the rest of the world. Right?
Let me add some things then. Logically, and we discuss this. What's our motto? One people, one nation, one destiny. Which means unity, equality. What's our electoral system? Winner take all. One person win, one person lose. They're incompatible. So constitutional reform is critical. Unless we have constitutional reform, we'll never build the bonds of unity because we'll always be winner take all and this race versus that race. And the sad thing about it is that the politicians know it.
Yep. And you know where we are right now? Simple mathematics. The PEP got 51%. The APNU, whatever, got 49. 51 equal 100, 49 equals 0. Done.
This is a very serious conversation, by the way. It's just
Done.
Yeah, y'all don't. We're in the conversation with y'all, right? And
another question, Martin.
wait, just before you ask the other question, Juby, do we have any comment from online? Or any questions yet?
Only one comment that the rain was bit.
Oh,
But,
the red.
apart from that,
All right,
all
so just shut off and refresh. Shut off and
Mm.
close off and refresh. But yeah, thanks, Juby. She's monitoring our Facebook today. And I know that Zari would have loved to be here, but due to the system, she couldn't fly in time. But yeah, definitely we're having a nice, lively discussion.
Who is Zari?
She's one of our panelists who's very active. One of
From
the young girls
Trinidad?
From Trinidad.
Okay.
She's a youth advocate over there. So she actually had a question for you, but I think we'll discuss that one when we head up to the location you want us to
Okay. No problem.
discuss to highlight today. But I know that we have a couple other questions. Jubilanti had some other questions about development in the digital space, but maybe Limar can ask this question and then highlight. But again, this is the reason why we're having this Black Table Talk is because we want to have a meeting of the minds. We don't want to really, conflict isn't our objective. Our objective is our objective is to ensure that we understand different perspectives so that we could kind of buy into this one Guyana vision, our vision for unity, development, and togetherness, right? Because that is our priority. That's what we care about: building a strong future for Guyana and lifting our nation out of it. And just before Limar asks his question, I remember you discussed something about Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore and how he was able to use a unique strategy when it came to education and setting the mindset and all of that when it came to building or rebuilding Singapore using a very strategic perspective. And I believe you even mentioned that Guyana and Singapore were pretty much at the same level at one point in time.
Yeah, when we got
So,
independence.
when we got-
1 year apart, yeah.
So could you give us an idea of how what lessons Guyana could learn from that and how we could adapt it to our development? And then Limar, you could go ahead.
Well, again, there's no rocket science in what he did. He went to university with Margaret Thatcher way back when they were in university in England. And they were very close friends. And when he went back to Malaysia, which is where he's from, he started to represent the underclass, which were basically the ordinary people. And he ran into the politicians, and they were very concerned about his interference in the status quo. And he started a movement with the ordinary people and some of his close allies, and decided that, look, we don't want to stay in this system, we want to have a different system. And he created all kinds of problems for the government, the sultans of Malaysia. And he came up with this idea, look, let us break away and go to this place, which is south of Malaysia, a rock. What resources? They have nothing. It's just a big rock. If you imagine like rock stone, right? Just rock. And they didn't have water there, right? Wow. Today, they use most of the water that they have to use, they buy by the liter from Malaysia, and they desalinate the ocean, okay? So he decided, I'm gonna break away, let me break away, right? And they broke away and they went to this rock. And the Malaysian Politburo said, good, they're gonna starve to death right there, let it go down. Lock them off, all right? Send them to the island and let them starve, right? But he had a vision, all right? And the people around him had a vision. And they looked at the geography of where they were and said, hey, we are in a strategic location that we can become the entrepot for shipping for the world. We can set up a shipping terminal here and become the hub for the world, right? A lot of people think he was mad, right? The other thing he did, all the people who decided to go with him, he said, here, you are ethnic Malays, you are Indians, and you're Chinese. You can talk as much Hindi and Chinese and wherever you want, home. The native language that we will all adopt is going to be English, because we have to deal with the world. And the majority of the world speaks English, especially the developed world. And that he did. The next thing he did is that all the multilateral agencies and IMF and IDB and World Bank, they wanted to get involved, right? Again, to manipulate, right? Which is what they do. Don't fool yourself, right? And a lot of them I know, I'm not very kind to several of them personally, right? And I always remember Burnham many years ago, right, got so angry with the IMF, with what they were doing to manipulate Guyana. He got up at the square of the revolution. He said, don't worry, them IMF, the international mother, and that was it. So, what I'm saying to you, right, Kuan Yew had a vision of unity and diversity, and he made education compulsory, provided by the state from kindergarten to tertiary education. When I went to Singapore the first time in 1987, I went into a shopping plaza to buy a watch. In those days, a watch for me was a Seiko. I loved the Seiko watch. And talking to the guy there behind the counter, I recognized that he did not know ordinary salesman, the way in which he was talking. So I turned to him, I says, sir, if you don't mind me asking, you don't seem to be just a salesman, you seem to have other capabilities. He said, yes, sir, I have a master's degree in civil engineering. I said, well, what's civil and engineering got to do with selling watches? Right? He says, sir, in my country, everybody has a master's or a bachelor's or a PhD. So somebody got to sell watches.
Could go to school.
And today in Singapore and around the world, if you go to any part of the world where there's a major project, whether it's building a bridge across the ocean, building a 50-story building, where the oil, whether it's the tower in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa, you know what the project engineer and the manager? A Singaporean. Right? You know what's their export? Brain power. Because they ain't got nothing else. Right? And today, Singapore has a size of 277 acres, 8 square miles. We got 83,000, 300 times them. And they ain't got nothing other than the rock. Right? But they have the highest per capita GDP, second or first in the world. Right? Vision.
We have a comment from Leon Caleb saying that he's enjoying this, he's loving this. I also wanted to just also share an experience too on the note of vision in Singapore. So I know that I did some research in the past and it said that in Singapore you can't chew gum. Experience that required me to go there. And I was in the airport, you know, wanting to have some gum. So I went to the stall and I said, is this gum? How much is it for? And the guy looked at me like, is she crazy? And I kept saying, is this gum? Is this? And then I stopped halfway, midway, and I was like, oh wait, I'm in Singapore. I was like, you guys don't sell gum. It was the same packaging as your winter fresh or something. It was mint, not gum. So for me, that kind of like cemented that the country did have a vision that they stuck to. And even as an outsider going in, it was good to see that, you know, that was something I was maintaining. And he said to me,
cleanliness is next to godliness.
yes, he said, don't let them catch you.
Well, when you walk around anywhere in the world, you see those black marks that you see all over the pavement, the sidewalks, and the streets. That's gum when they spit it out, right? And it's banned in Singapore, right? Yes. Banned completely. You get fined $200. If you go into a public facility and don't flush the toilet, you're fined $200. Right? And the streets and the sidewalks of Singapore, as you would have seen, are not concrete. They're tiled with ceramic tiles. Because every afternoon at about 6:30, special machines come and wash them with soap water and blow dry them.
Yes.
Right? So you don't slip if you come behind them. Right? So that is vision. Right? And you know...
Let me give you an example of what's going on today in Rwanda.
Yes.
Rwanda is the greenest city in Africa. Rwanda putting up a satellite. They're building a artificial intelligence or silica city, so to speak. Every week in Rwanda, people come out and clean their communities, right? 1 day a week. The government doesn't have to tell them that. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Shifting that mindset.
And you know, the thing is, you guys can do it.
Yeah, definitely.
But you gotta stop thinking that, oh, you know, tomorrow I gotta wait for Mr. Irfanali for telling me to clean the streets. Right? You gotta send some rubbish bin and some plastic bag.
You know,
Guy.
one thing I observed is country that moved from third world countries to first world countries is these countries tend to put things like education as top priority.
Yes.
And secondly, another element I observe
Tigers.
is diversifying their economy. And I think
Yeah,
that's one
yeah,
of the topics we talked about in Black Table Talk.
Well,
But this whole issue of specialization versus diversification. I don't know, curious to hear you talk, Mr. Mayor.
well, you know, a lot of people in today will tell you buy education, thing expensive, you know. You can't afford it. Well, let me tell you something. If you think education expensive, try ignorance. Right?
You got enough of that.
Try and see how they can fix you. All right? Education is the key because a lot of other issues, social or otherwise, whether it's brushing your teeth, you know, bathing properly, right? Now, you talk about the rubbish, right? So, a few weeks ago, the guys from Tiger Bay came to me and said, you know, Mr. Ming, the place messy and we want to host a tournament, football tournament, and we need to clean up the place, but the city council don't collect the rubbish. So I said, why they don't collect the rubbish? So I go down with them in the bay and I see the rubbish all over the sidewalk and everything. I said, why y'all throw the rubbish there? The people can't come and pick up the rubbish and dump it in the bin. I said, that's carelessness. They said, Mr. Ming, we can't afford to get them big rubbish bin. So I said, here what we can do. I am going to provide 26 big drums and I will paint them, I'll bore holes in the bottom so nobody can collect them and say, they're going to put water, right? And we will put them at strategic points. I said, y'all can decide on, not me, right? You want to keep your community clean, you can decide where you can put it. And we went and we put them at strategic places. Then they came over by where Giffland used to be and they had a heap of rubbish could cover the whole floor here. And a lot of vendors from all over the area around there, not the people in Tiger Bay, were throwing their rubbish there. So I said to them, I'm going to call the mayor right now. I picked up the phone, I called the mayor and says, Mr. Mayor, I need your support. The Tiger Bay community is full of filth and garbage. I need, within the next 2 days, you to send the truck and come and clear all of the rubbish up. They will be in drums, right? The Saturday morning, he came himself. The truck came and we cleared everything up because they were now in drums, right? And I said to him in front of everybody, I don't want the trucks cleared today. Every week when you're clearing all them other places, Queenstown, Albertown, come and clear Tiger Bay. These are people too, right? These are our citizens, right? And they came and they now clear it every week, right? Just like how they clear the rest, right? So what I'm saying, that was just a simple thing. I am in a position to help, right? I reached out. Right? You know why? Because I operate in Tiger Bay. Tiger Bay's interest is my interest.
Yep.
Right?
Mr. Ming has insured all the school children in this area.
Right. When I moved into this area, the kids couldn't go to school because a lot of the times they were sick. I insured 300-something children privately to go to private hospitals and get medication.
Told no one. It's not a publicity issue.
Right? I do it because I can afford to and it's in the best interest of my community and my country. Simple.
Yes, ma'am, would you run for president?
Run for president? I will run from the president.
Yeah, Limar. I mean, yeah, Naira.
So, let me say this to you. I'm going to be 70 this year. Right? It's time for people like me to step away and to pass the knowledge that I've garnered over the 70 years on to people like you. I tell everybody, at my age, I got 1 foot in the coffin and 1 on a banana skin, and anything can happen. Right? If I make a misstep, it's upside down. Right?
Let me add to Mr. Grant, what Stanley is saying. Eddie Grant always reminds us, old people didn't build Guyana. They didn't dig the drains, they didn't do
It's young people.
young people.
Right?
And keeps telling us that so that young people could start. So let me come back to your question of diversification and specialization. It all starts with education. If we have the proper education, which the government should provide, then we look at what Guyana is. We got 200 fruits and vegetables, we got all these minerals. We could specialize or diversify. We have both options in Guyana, but unless we have that educational platform and the vision, and something Mr. Min has been speaking about, but he's not calling the word because he sees you as that. Leadership. If you don't have leadership, nothing happens. And that's what Guyana needs, young leaders who can create their own vision or adopt a vision that makes sense to them, like you guys are talking, and drive it. Guyana wasn't built by old people, young people.
Yep, and the problem that the politicians have been successful at doing is to make you feel that you can't change anything, right? And you've bought into that almost, right?
Not all of us.
No.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Now, the thing about it, you talk about, you know, guys like Eric and myself have a role to play. And the only thing that the role we have to play is to tell you what not to do, right? Because we've seen what doing those things have caused, right? And you guys have got to map out the vision, some of which is embraced by what we said needs to be done, right? But we need to sit down in the back room, way at the back, where nobody can see us, and be just checking the yard to see that you ain't doing shippiness, right? But y'all got to lead the charge. As simple as that.
That's what you're doing here by
Right.
this table talk. Right?
Yeah, it's about setting the sail. That's what we're doing here. But I know Limar really wants to make a point. But before Limar makes the point, Mr. Ming, do you remember OTC? The last, when was that?
Yeah, when I saw it and when you referred to it,
Yeah.
I remember it very well after that.
For those of you who don't know, right? There was an event about island gas. Mr. Ming is also into island gas. You can see a little more of that today, hopefully. But essentially, he just spoke about older people being in the back room. Picture this: a room with 200 or 300 and something island gas professionals, engineers, 20 years of experience and all that. And then you see Mr. Ming outside of that room with 2 plastic chairs, a table, and a binder this thick, right? A white. If I'm right, was it a white binder?
White cover, yeah.
A white binder.
Had a good memory.
This thick. I remember because it shocked me. I was in the age of technology. I said, he is sitting while all these people got fancy screens all inside there, and he's sitting outside there on a 2 plastic chair. And what he'll do, he'll see one person out there. He probably said hi to them earlier or whatever, and said, "Let me show you this plan." And I was outside there because I didn't able to listen to all the technical stuff. Anyway, the point is, right? So I was out there, sampling the food and all that, and I would look across, and he would spend 15 to 20 minutes with each one of these persons. Now, in my head, I'm like, this don't make no kind of sense. If there are 200 and something persons inside, why not use that as a platform to build relationships and to build sensitization? But as an older person, just like what you said, their job is to be at the back of the room or whatever, and advising people what not to do, what to do, bam, bam, bam. So at that point, I realized this strategy it's a different kind of strategy, and it's something that we don't really value when it comes to building relationships and building organizations nowadays. It's literally sitting down with the people. Did you know these people had personal relationships before?
Well, I had met them during the course of the conference. And, one of the things that I do, I think, reasonably well is to identify very quickly the serious people from the bullshitters. And I only sit down with the serious ones.
Well, thank you for sitting with us. But that's one thing that really stood out. And then something else that we noticed, well, I'm now coming across with this island gas thing, because I think the petroleum industry is going to be a driving force for national development. And in our discussion, you added us to this group and you sent us a set of information. 2 hours of video content, different video content, PDF, over 100 something pages of PDFs. It's more than 2 hours. Like, it was a lot of content, but we decided, you know what, if we get in the audience, with him and his team, him and his 5-star general, why not read through and understand the information?
Yes.
And what was something that stood out was he identified these shore bases, right? And shore bases play an important role when it comes to engaging in the oil and gas industry. And he showed us that there are a couple of ones that are established and they're doing the job as best as possible, and they're really taking a very aggressive approach when it comes to maximizing development and pushing us forward. And then he also highlighted, while that is going on, there's a unique vision that him and his team created that would, it would dwarf the current operations, but he understood that there was a value in a specific area of the Essequibo where it kind of lends itself to these sort of operations. Could you kind of give us an idea of the landscape when it comes to oil and gas, and also kind of highlight that project that you sent us?
Well, let me just say this because I want to wrap up so we can go to the next location. I'm not going to try to promote Parika or what I'm doing, for the simple reason that that's a view that we share. We could be right or we could be wrong. It'll have to be seen. But as I said to you, when I sent you that data, by the end of today, I expect that you guys would have seen, having researched, and said, well, you know something, this chap mad. Or he got some merit in what he's saying. And if there's merit, by the end of the day at 4 o'clock, I want you all to own the vision and to start working towards making it happen. Because I can't make it happen by myself, right? As Eric and I said, right, we can stay at the back and see if y'all doing the right things, but the next generation, if y'all believe that the vision I've painted is the way to go, take ownership.
I believe.
Take ownership. You know, I tell people that know me for a long time. In 1971, and I'm closing here, I was invited by the Yamaha dealer in Barbados to go and race. I was a Caribbean champion for 5 years on motorbikes. You weren't born yet. And I went over there, brand new racing motorcycle, to test and to race the weekend. I was champion. And the Saturday afternoon, when you do qualifying, which you know you see from Formula 1 and MotoGP, the fastest time puts you on the front, and the slowest time on the back. So I was there testing the bike and qualifying, and on the fastest part of the track, where there was a slight kink in the road, a slight bend, where everybody used to close off the throttle a bit and open, I used to go through there flat out. Full whack, right? At about 110 miles an hour. And coming through there at that point, there was a problem in the gearbox. Brand new bike. And the gearbox seized up and the back wheel stopped turning. Well, riding a bike with 2 wheels turning is hard, much less with 1 wheel not turning, right? So the bike skewed sideways, catapulted through the air about 15 feet. And I was thrown up in the air like a rag doll and landed on the back of my head. And that big fancy helmet that you see me wear was busted all the way, right? Well, I remember clearly like if it happened yesterday. When I was up in the air seeing the ground coming, I said, by OSH1T, this ain't gonna be good, right? Right. When I landed on the ground, well, I can't blame GPL, I got Barbados Power and Light. They cut off the electricity, blackout. Cold. The ambulance, everybody, doctors came down because I was tumbled. I went from here to about double the distance to that workshop, tumbling and like a rag doll. And when they came to my body, I was lifeless. They couldn't find pulse, nothing. So they were getting ready to put me in the stretcher or whatever. And I woke up to the consternation of everybody. This guy come back from the dead, right? Jumbie, right? And I always remember that, right? Because it is a life-changing experience, right? You don't go through that and be normal, right? And since then, I have a view of life that is very different from most people. I tell everybody, like I said in the program, that I had experiences, not boasting, that most of you will never have until the final day. But I saw God twice. I saw you another time in England. Right? And I'm going to see you a third time, right? So I have adopted a philosophy that I want no enemies, right? I ain't going to love you and hug you, but if I don't like what you're doing, I avoid you. But I will never hate anybody. Simple, right? And that decides how I treat people. I see everybody as equal, right? The ordinary guy on the street that's selling fruit outside Massiah is my good friend, right? The guy with the cutlass walk around with the red hair like he heading good is my friend, right? Because they're humans. And that guides me. And a lot of people say, you know, Mr. Ming, why did you get into politics, right? The people that know me well. I said, boy, let me tell you something. You see the crash I had in Barbados? I got into politics due to the delayed effect of brain damage.
I thought something else was going on.
Something else coming.
Well, I know we're wrapping up here, right? But there's one other thing. Well, right behind us, I don't know if y'all could see it. We have an amazing race car, and Mr. Ming, and I just wanted to touch on this since we're leaving now, right? What a race car represents to me is affluence and technology and science, right? I didn't care about racing and all of that. The first time when we were here with Dr. Lee, and he brought a team. I think it was like 16 young persons. Many of those persons right now today are doctors, lawyers, international marketers, and like run entrepreneurs and that kind of stuff. And the reason why I brought up the racing cars because, like, when I think about it now, because I got into this F1 thing, looking at it and understanding it, racing cars aren't just about the speed and the energy. It's a lot about science. It's about competitive will. It's a very, it's about teamwork and all. And it's something that I really don't think that a lot of people understand what it means for Guyana to produce a racer or a racer to come from Guyana to compete at the international stage. So could you touch on that? And win from Guyana. Matter of fact, this one has the Nutraven. This one.
No, this is one is in the container over there. I'll show you all another time.
No problem. So this is literally a racing car made in Guyana. This is a racing car with Guyana flag on it, right? And to me, what that represents, as I said before, it talks about teamwork. It talks about affluence. It talks about vision. It talks about science and technology. And people need to understand what these things mean symbolically. So, Mr. Ming, could you just touch on that before we make that?
That's a good final question. My son, who is here, I don't think he's. I don't know if he's coming up today because he has his own agenda. I don't set his agenda. When he was about 6 years old, I introduced him and my 3 daughters to motorcycling, and I took them riding motorcycles in the mud, and then in the sand, and then on the road. Well, not the public road, at Temeri. And they were into motorcycles and go-karts as 6-year-olds. And when he was about 12, I think it was, he said, "Dad, I want to drive karts and be a champion like you." Because he went to Temeri and saw me win karting. And I started training him with a little baby cart on the street where we live in Blegazeg, putting pylons and teaching him how to go around the pylons and stuff. When he was 12, he started racing at Temeri in the junior category. And he won. Then he said, "I'm coming to race you now." Senior category at 13. I said, "All right, come. I'm going to bust your tail." Right? And within a couple of races, after he raced and followed me, right, and learned all the tricks, the man passed me in the turn. I wanted to hit him, right? So he passed me and passed me on a turn. Right? And went on to become the national champion at 13. Beat all of us. I was the national champion at the time.
At 13, you said?
At 13, yeah.
Was he in Form 1 student?
Whoever at me. Right? I have the picture upstairs, right? Wow. Him passing me. So when he turned 18, I took him to Miami. And he said, "Dad, I know you got a friend with a track, a go-kart track. Ask him if I can go and drive on the track and see how I compare with Americans." So I took him there today, not a car that he ever drove before, a car the guy had in the shop. And within 20 laps, he was lapping at the lap record of the track. And the guy said to me, "Hey, boy, we got something here." He called the mechanic from the workshop. He said, "Come see this thing." And they came and they looked. They says, "Mr. Ming, will you allow your son to drive in a race next weekend to represent us?" I said, "Boy, my son will not drive any go-kart other than one that is put together with the supervision of his father that has everything right. He wouldn't want to drive anything that is substandard because he don't like losing, right?" Wow. So he didn't have a new cart, so we agreed that we can use one that he had and we fixed it up as best. He went to practice the weekend for the race and the car gave all kinds of problems. At the end of the day, he said, "Dad, I ain't racing. I'm done with this nonsense. The car is junk," right? Anyhow, I coaxed him and I said, "Look, the experience, get the experience," right? So he reluctantly went out for the first race. He was way down at the back, like about 16th out of 30 people to start. And by the end of the race, he was 9th, right? And for the finals, which was the following day, starting in ninth, as against down at the back. And at the end of lap one, he was second and challenging for the lead. So at that point, I realized that this cat is unique, right? And I said I will support him because he was good at school, he was a top student. And I bought him a new cart, and he went on to become champion in Florida, right?
In Mexico.
Win. Then after he did that, he said, Dad, but I want to race cars all my life, you know, I want to race cars. I said, well, your father ain't got car money, right? So a guy invited us to go to see a car race about a couple of months later, and I took him, and we walked around in the pits and see all the teams and things. And I turned to him and I said, if you were to drive for one of these teams, which team would you drive for? And he picked one of them, Pelfrey. And I said, why? He said, them are serious men. Look at the way they organize themselves, look at the equipment they have. He said, Dad, you can sponsor me at the race? I said, Skipper, you know how much money you're talking there? I got pawned my jewels, right? Anyhow, I subsequently spoke with the owner of the team, and they said, well, before we go anywhere, we got to do an evaluation on him. His reflex, his maturity, his judgment, his temperament, and everything. And you got to go to Indianapolis to do it with special people that are trained to evaluate, including Indy drivers. So we set it up, and I said, well, what's the cost? He said, only 15,000. I said, 15,000 what? Rubles or US dollars? Anyhow, we went, and the second day they took him to a racetrack, put him in a Formula car, four-wheel, you know, open-wheel car. And again, within 20 laps, he was lapping a lap record of the track for that type of car. And then a week later, the owner called me and says, Mr. Ming, can you allow your son to drive in the last race of the season for this category in Pennsylvania? And I said to him, I said, but tell me something. My son never raced a car like this before. You're asking him to drive in a race where all the other 20-something competitors have driven for the whole year in a track that they all know, in a car that they all know. What do you expect him to do, right? I said, he will want to make himself a fool, right? He says, no, if we bring even 10th, right? We need the points because the guy who normally drives is not available because he has some exam. So I said, all right. So we went, not expecting very much, and he went out for the practice, which is only, practice session is only 15 minutes. And he went out, he practiced, he came back, he said, Dad, this track difficult. This track got 21 turns. It got negative cambers, the road falling away, and blind corners, and I just don't know it, right? And I can't learn, I didn't learn it in the 20 minutes, right? I said, anyhow, he was down like 20 out of 26. He still was quicker than 6 guys. So I said, go and drive. You'll learn something during the first race. He went out and drive. He came out, went around, he brought 9th or 8th. And he came in the pits, he said, that tomorrow is a different game. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, learn it now.
Yes.
Game over.
Game tomorrow. Next day, he started 9th, and it was about 20-something lap race. And by about halfway, he was 2nd. And ended up 2nd. And the team that you were driving with, they brought 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And the commentator says that it is the first time in the history that a rookie in his first race spaced above 10th position.
Wow.
And then I said, well, you want to continue racing in America? He said, no, I want to race against the best in the world, right? Right? And I said, well, you got to get best in the world, father, because this wasn't running out of money. And the chance he had was to drive in F4, which is, you know, a low category in F1. And the big championship was in Mexico, where Hamilton was driving in F1. And I flew with him to Mexico to join a team that had F4 cars. And again, we did a lot of research online. And the one we chose was the one that was owned by the Mexican Air Force General. I said, here, Skipper, if we go in there, we got to get the best. I can't go second best. I said the general could do two things. As an ex-Air Force general that used to fly out the presidents of Mexico, he knew everybody. Two, security where we go there, nobody can attack me or anything because we got his security, right? And then I turned to the guy and I said, look, I need to have the best technicians, the best engineers, and I want to bring his tutor, who was a Norwegian. So I had Norwegian tutor, Mexican engineers, American engineers, Argentine engineers. Put together the top team that I could find. And I said to them, I said, gentlemen, I don't know nothing about running a race car like this, but I know about organization. I will pay the money and I want you all to deliver a winning car because my son could win. 2 years later, we won. Wow. And nobody believed it could happen. Nobody in the Caribbean, everybody, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, everybody said, a mudhead can't go there and beat up all of them people. Well, the mudhead bust the tail. Right?
I like how you. This entire story is a very inspirational story, and it kind of also speaks to legacy. And when it comes back to that 2030 plan, what is coming out there is the power of organization, not only division, but organizing implementation there too. So, Mr. Ming, I think that now is a great time for us to make that transition up to the really special project that you want to share with today.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you guys in maybe a little bit of This is Black Table Talk. Black because the table was painted black. Table because it was a table, and talk because we were gaffing there, right? And this is sponsored by Massiah Capital. Stay tuned. We're here with Mr. Ming and his 5-star general, and we'll see you again in a few. Later on.
Just to say thank
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Just to say thank you to the viewers, Melinda Massiah Duncan, Dr. Pepe Ramnot, and Joshua David. They left comments saying where they were watching from and that they were enjoying the show so far.
All right, perfect. Tell your friends and everything, come back, because in maybe a few hours or so, we'll be live again. All right, part 2. Later, everybody.